Welcome to the Warrior Gamer Headquarters podcast. Lieutenant Colonel Ken Crigliano, your co-host.
Hello, my name is Danny Martin. I am the co-founder and CEO of eSports Inc. eSports is a technological platform combined with that of an 8,000 square foot esports studio and education center in Duncanville, Texas, which is essentially 23 minutes south of downtown Dallas. From our perspective, we leverage our facility as an opportunity for individuals to come and see, touch, and feel esports, whether you're a parent, a student, a gamer, or even a CTE director or admin, or even a superintendent. This is a great opportunity for you to be able to see all the elements and all the career pathways within actual esports and gaming. And from our perspective, it's a great pathway to our technological platform, which is essentially a learning management system, but we coined it a learning experiential platform where students not only can learn, but they can apply what they've learned in a form of a portfolio in which they can confidently go to industry experts and say, hey, this is what I've done, and here's why I can add value to your company. This is eSports.
Well, that sounds incredible. Danny, if you could just kind of help me visualize, if I was interested in doing this, you say it's 8,000 square feet, just kind of give me an idea of like the typical rundown of a visitor and maybe why a visitor would even want to come down and give you a visit since it's so close. And I'm sure that 23 minutes is like not traffic, because Dallas traffic. I've been there a couple times.
I love it, man. I was when I started in esports and gaming, it was around about 2011, and there was no esports programs in my college. I was at University of Texas at San Antonio, and I was the one that was fixing consoles and running esports tournaments and helping develop individuals. And I started quickly recognizing that the actual pipeline is just non-existent. So I started to understand that it's on me to create an actual community to help run tournaments, from brackets to video and audio, and to that of lighting, and so many different elements in regards to that of hosting an actual tournament. And when I started to recognize where I come from, south of Dallas is not the most affluent area. And so I said, what are all the schools that are in that area? And I seen 7 independent school districts, Dallas ISD being the largest with 144,000 students, to that of Cedar Hill ISD, which is also a large ISD. And ISD means independent school districts, but we have 7 ISDs that didn't have esports programs. And so I said, I want to actually build a facility in this particular area. So therefore, the actual educators who are interested in incorporating esports, they can have somewhere that they can see and engage. And so when a student actively engages with our actual facility, we call it Discover Live. And before the student engages with our facility is typically the actual educator that is doing their tours with their administrators, where they're like, okay, is this a buy-in? And ultimately they say, yes, this is really, really cool. We see our opportunity for our students to engage. And then we actually do professional development sessions. We just recently did a professional development session with that of Epic and Unreal and Twinmotions, with that of so dope Kathy and Steve Isaacs, who came in for about 8 hours, and we brought in Dallas ISDs, around about 40 educators. And it was pretty cool because they never had a PD session in this form where they can come to a facility and see gaming and esports, and also learn about building within the actual Unreal platform. And so from our perspective, it's that element where an educator can say, hey, we're being educated on how to educate our students. And so at that point, then we actually allow the actual students of the schools to come into our facility. They bus in, we call it Discover Live. They hear from our staff, they take a tour from our facility, they see all the different career pathways, from AV broadcasting to production to content creating, to that of actual graphic designing and even competition. They actually go into our arena, and from there, they're actually able to say, hey, I'm going to break you guys up into groups of 10. Let's say if it was 50 individuals. 10 of them will go to the production room, 10 of them go to the graphic designing room, 10 of them will go to the actual content creation room, 10 of them will even go into the stage. And even 10 of them go to the actual event coordination room. Every 30 minutes, they're segue into a different room. But in those actual rooms, they're doing assignments in which they're creating logos in the actual graphic designer room. They're creating photos and videos in the content room. They're doing overlays and stream packages in the production room. And they're even competing on the competition stage. But one of the coolest things is that as every group actually hits the competition stage, we take the top 2 qualifiers of that actual group. By the end, as all individuals actually experience each actual group, they go back into the arena and we say, hey, for the top 2 qualifiers for each of the actual groups, come up to the stage and you're about to compete in a massive tournament. What we then do is allow them to compete on the stage, but we also build an actual production around them. And we incorporate the actual assignments that the students were doing in the actual groups, their pictures, their videos, their graphics, their event run of shows and such, which gives a perspective of have a capability of saying, I may not qualify, I may not be the best gamer, I may not be on the stage right now, but my actual work is still being shown to the actual grander audience. And for an educator that actually able to see that, it gives them an actual snapshot of what it can be when it comes down to being in an arena like Surge or Esports Arena or HyperX Stadium. And at that point, they can say it's not only about the competition side of it, but this individual has capabilities of working the lighting of this production or that of actually the broadcasting and bracketing of that. So our Discover Live is a 4-hour experience where the students can actively apply what they actually learn in a setting that's similar to professional esports. And at that point right now, they're leaving with something that they can add to their portfolio. Not the most, but at least something. And then from there, the educator says how we can add more value. Can we get a little bit more granular in regards to those actual career pathways? And we leverage our technological platform to do that by way of our content and our assessments and our project-based learning.
So what are the ages typically of the folks coming in for the 4-hour sessions?
Typically, we love a high school, so anywhere from 9 through 12 and early college. We find that it's much more valuable for that of the actual high school students as the fact that they can actually learn tangible skill sets like Adobe Photoshop or Microsoft fundamentals or any other actual certifiable things that actually add value to CTE and PTech programs, and which allows the actual educators to have something that they can say, all right, this is what we're doing for our students, and this is how we can get funding for our actual programs. And so from our perspective, it's a great way to say, hey, you have something that's tangible, a skill set. And then for us, it allows us to be able to go to industry experts and companies and organizations and say, this individual is actually qualified enough to be able to work for your actual company.
So what I find very interesting, and April, you can comment on this too, is, I liken this to, and Danny, I'm a professional athlete too. And so I liken this to the pipeline that's absolutely critical in regular sports, right?
Yep.
Physical sports. If you don't have even a couple nodes that are just underperforming or underpresent, the whole entire ecosystem will fail. And
Yep.
So what I find very interesting is, so you're building that pipeline because it just simply doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And the uniqueness about this industry is, if you think about one of the most popular American sports is football, right? So if a kid is like, man, I'm very interested in football, basically it's going to be a male, right? And they're probably going to be somewhere in the middle school age, and they're going to want to play. So if they're going to a Discover Live version, in football, they're playing. They're not being exposed to all of this other stuff. Yep. And so I find that really, really fascinating. Can you maybe just talk about a little bit of, I'm a kid and I'm interested in gaming. I game, but you know what? That's not the end all be all. I want to kind of see. So can you talk about maybe some vignettes of some visitors who came in, maybe had some aha moments, and if you've been around long enough to kind of see the trail on that, that would be very interesting to hear.
Yeah. The aha moment for us is simply that most gamers see themselves in the shoes of the most popular and the most successful gamers. It's almost like if I was an athlete, I would hope, and I had passions to go to the NBA, I would naturally see myself in the shoes of LeBron or Luka. And I will think that I could be there. And so ultimately, from our perspective, in regards to esports, a individual who's competing and they play games, they love Fortnite or they love Rocket League or they love NBA 2K. What we do is simply let them know that you potentially can be a professional gamer. But just in case you did not become a professional gamer, here's one of the biggest elements that you've acquired from a skill set perspective. But in order to become a professional gamer, it's not just based off of your skill set. And I'm able to say this because we've had over 9 gamers out of our organization that have turned pro. But at the end of the day, we've had so many gamers that we've interacted with that have not turned pro. But what we tell individuals that are coming through our actual pipeline is the fact that while you are driving towards becoming pro, the biggest pros are not just good at the game. They're actively good at marketing themselves. They're good at streaming. They're good at engaging with charities and showcasing their personality. They're leveraging streams. They're building graphic packages. And that's what helps them gain an audience. And so if you did want to become pro, not being just good at the game is just not quite the end all be all. And so ultimately, from this perspective, we can be able to then highlight that of the values of understanding how to leverage platforms to make your streams better, or how to engage with individuals, or even how to just be able to compete in an actual live setting where people are watching you, because of nerves that it takes to be able to adhere to somebody in front of your face, or clapping when you're not doing as good and supporting you. That's critical to any coach that is looking to be able to say, hey, if you're able to handle yourself with 200 people watching you, how are you going to be able to handle yourself with 2,000 or 200,000 individuals are watching you? So being able to tell a student that just in case you did not make it to the actual pro, you are now able to have the skill sets that allow you to be beneficial to any company in any industry, just due to the fact that you're learning that of simple skill sets like graphic designing and running the actual tournaments and organizing, and also being able to create content. Every company in this world right now are looking for individuals that can be able to help them create content around their actual products. And so ultimately saying that you can shoot for the actual stars, but ultimately, if you just do not make it, you're still landing on some planet that's out there. And then ultimately you still have the capabilities of being able to be super successful in the industry and adding value to any other company. So what we look at it from an esports perspective is you could potentially make it, but the skill sets that you understand that you had to acquire to get to that point, they're still valuable to somebody that's out there. And I look at it from a perspective of our company. And I have to hire individuals to help develop our company. So from our perspective, I'm always looking at individuals who may not have gone pro, but they are also very, very good skill-wise to help our company grow and ultimately help other companies add value to the actual infrastructure of the industry just as much. So that's literally, when individuals come in our space, it's ultimately letting them know that they can make it, but the chances are very low. But here's also the actual opportunity within the new industry that companies are searching for high and wide right now in regards to those skill sets that you're developing that you may not even know that you're actually developing. But for us, we're going to shine light on those skill sets that you're developing that you just didn't know about.
Yeah, so I have 2 guests lined up that are experts in name, image, and likeness.
Yeah.
The NCAA ruling fairly recently. And there was some stats out there, how many pro athletes when they went NBA, NFL, and MLB, who, the average career in these sports is like 2 years, 2.5 years.
Yep.
When I found that, I was very shocked.
Yep.
But how many of them were broke?
Yep.
After signing $1 million deals. And I think you just in my head, I just linked in the inability of when I was an NCAA athlete for me to manage my own name, image, and likeness to the resultant later on failures in life. Like I just linked that. And what you're doing right now is, wow, man. I mean, that's pretty awesome, because as a dude who promotes myself right on my own channels as a pro athlete, and I just got picked up by Ninja Warrior, and I'm like super learning this stuff right now. That is, I still have to process that. That is pretty awesome, because these guys and girls, I mean, They have to do their own marketing. They have to do new graphics design. They have to know what appeals. They have to do content creation. They have to interact with an audience. They have to be, you know,
a Swiss Army knife.
Yeah. So how much of that are you hitting across the board of building? You know, I was a 2-time Olympic developmental coach, and we just developed the athlete, you know, psychologically, physically, mentally, spiritually. But we didn't do like marketing. We didn't do any of that crap. So like for you in this, are you cradle to grave?
Yeah, I think this is interesting because if the cradle is more so, we have experiential project-based programs, but a lot of our programs are not geared towards how to be good at Fortnite or how to be good at Overwatch. It's more so how to structure an organization around someone who plays Overwatch or Fortnite. For an example, like when we did the actual professional development session with that of Unreal and Twinmotion and Steve and Epic, my logic was, let's teach educators how to use Unreal, so therefore they can teach their students how to use Unreal. Therefore, when our facility is occupied by individuals who know how to utilize Unreal, that they can actually create worlds in Fortnite Creator, and we can actually do competitions around that. So it's not so much a plan Fortnite, it's more so who can build the best worlds in Fortnite. So when you think about Cradle, that is the elements that we're speaking on in regards to teaching individuals how to build the games, but also how to be entrepreneurs within the actual space. I was an entrepreneurial degree. Like that was what I studied in college. So I grew up in the southern sector of Dallas where, you know, my uncles and my family were in a position to where they didn't create multi-million-dollar companies, but they were their own entrepreneurs and cutting lawns and selling barbecue, you know, like washing, like car washes and things like that. But they still were entrepreneurs in their own right. And I learned the value of grit and perseverance and manage your money as possible. And I knew going into college that that's what I wanted to do. I just didn't know what it was until I was introduced to gaming and esports. And I look at it from our programs as more geared towards entrepreneur and also building and developing. The gaming is really cool. There's an entertainment element that's there, and individuals can make it out, as we've seen. But there's also elements of individuals who are actually spending time building the actual ecosystem of the industry. But I always tell individuals, like, you know, I've experienced that of when you say cradle, and if it had to go to that of a competitive element, I remember a specific person by the name of Frye who said, hey, I want to go into the NBA 2K League and I want to compete. But before he said, I want to go into NBA 2K League, he was just actually competing in NBA 2K for $2,000 to $20,000 prize purses. That was his infrastructure. He knew that if I go to this tournament across town, or if I go in Las Vegas or anything, this is how I'm making money so I can survive coming out of Waxahachie, a rural area that in our area. And when he had heard the announcement that the 2K League was going to be something of, you know, true, that's backed by the NBA, for him, it's like, this is my shot. And then for him to actually make it into the NBA 2K League and then also go and win 2 championships in the 2K League at over $2.5 million prize purses. And then from there, go retire and then come back to his hometown and be the head coach. I leveraged that individual with the perspective of saying, that's cradle to the grave. That's someone that's actually said, I am passionate about this industry. I'm going to go make something out of this industry. I'm going to actually do the best of the best and make capital out of this industry. I'm going to retire out of this industry, and I'm going to go and impact other individuals who want to get in the industry. And that's something that I look at as a pipeline that we've built, where I can go back to say, Frye, you are a full cycle that ultimately helps our valuation of our company, because now every student that is coming through our program, they're looking at you as someone who's made it. And even your life cycle in the NBA 2K League was about 4 to 5 years. You've ultimately amassed an amazing amount of capital. At the same sense, you're recognizing that you still want to give back to your actual community. And so when you see that, you recognize that it is possible from a competitive perspective, but you also have the capability of seeing the cradle to grave with the perspective of individuals who are really good at skill sets that are not just competing at the game. So when I think about cradle to grave, I think about not only competing, but I also think about the skill sets that one develops in regards to helping the actual industry and even other industries succeed is just as much. So if I had to answer your question, I would say yes, but we focus more so on the actual skill sets that are being developed outside of the actual competitive realm.
That's fantastic, Dan. Can I throw a question in there, Ken?
Yeah, for sure.
I'm loving everything you say, and I've got chill bumps. I'm trying to sort of build similar things in Chicago. Which I'm so thrilled to hear you speak. One of the things I was going to ask is, how did you find the intersection between tech education and esports? Our kids love to play, but we want them to just suck it up and learn Unreal, and that's not necessarily an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
It's like making that connection. How did you do that?
Yeah, I think it started from just being the student in the classroom, where I was in school, in high school, and I asked myself every day, like, is what I'm learning beneficial to when I leave out of the school and I have real life responsibilities, like feeding myself, making money to pay bills or help my parents. And a lot of the times I look at it from the perspective as like, no, I think I would like Spanish now. I feel as if like I've grown to an element where I can appreciate learning Spanish. But at that time, I'm like, why am I sitting here learning Spanish? Like, everybody I'm around, they talk English. I don't know anybody that talks Spanish. Like, what am I here for right now? I could be making money because as soon as I leave the school, I'm going to have to hear from my mom or dad saying, I don't got money. Why are you asking me? Or go out and do it. Like, I'm thinking about that from that perspective. So as a student, I'm more so like I need to have practical things that can help me actually survive. And now as an adult, I'm looking at education as a way of like, I don't want to do the normal education. I want to do it from a perspective of making it more practical for a student to say, okay, I'm learning something, because they're very intelligent. They're like, is this going to be useful? A lot of students right now thinking about college with the perspective of like, well, I'm going to pay all this for college. I can just go straight into the workforce and I don't have to pay all this money for it. So they're starting to think really practical. So educators have to be very engaged with how to actually make real world relate to education. And sometimes gaming does a great job of it from a gamification perspective. And for me, going into actual college and recognizing that once I got out of college, I was offered the opportunity to move to Silicon Valley with the perspective of someone saying, hey, I've acquired $14 million and I'm finding somebody who's in the gaming industry because I want to build a platform that's based off of gamification like that of eBay. But instead of actually building, you're actually playing games to get points on the items that you're purchasing. So they leverage gamification to drive more users to their actual platform. So a company like that is saying, how do we make actual, our platform good and fun by way of gamification? And we should be able to do that exact same thing with that of education. So from my perspective, it's ultimately looking at it as like creating fun environments, making it practical for one to be able to say, this is something I'm going to learn that's going to help me actually progress in the world. And a lot of the skill sets in esports right now that you have to acquire, you can do that right now and find value. I remember being in the actual space and I would go on Twitter and I would see individuals who are competing on teams, whether it's Valorant, Fortnite, NBA 2K. And when they're about to go into a tournament, you'll find individuals who are building their avatars. You'll find individuals who are saying, I'll pay, I will build your actual jerseys and you will pay me so you can be equipped before you go into that actual tournament. All virtual, right? And so they're actually doing, they're actually adding value to the economy by actually taking their actual skill sets and adding value to actual teams in the space. And these are all young individuals doing this, right? So from this perspective, I'm looking at it I'm like, wow, like this is how education can be useful for individuals. If you take an industry that people are passionate about and incorporate it into education and gamify the experience, then you make actual education fun and cool. So there are individuals now pay attention because they feel like it's useful. So from my perspective, having the capabilities of actually understanding technology and software development, I understood that I need to be able to create a technological platform to be able to add value to actual students. But I recognized that quickly by being in San Francisco, I recognized you can't just build and they will come. So I actually had to find the value of actually building a space, driving them to the the space and seeing and touching and feeling, and then guiding them to the technology platform. And then from there, then you actually able to, I call it the VA splash. It's almost literally like you have a fun environment, and then from there you incorporate the vegetables, and that's the education. So I look at our facility as a way to be able to expose individuals to that of the industry from touching and feeling, and then guiding them to the learning lessons. And then once they get through the learning lessons, they come back to the facility and actually apply what they've learned in a physical form.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. And I tell parents all the time, gaming, our students are more confident. They are better communicators. They have a fantastic way to interact with each other. They know how to set up whole LANs. They can do all the networking. They've got so many skills because they want to game that that it's just, it's heartbreaking when parents don't let their kids game.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
I think one of the other things I was going to ask you is a bit about how you decided to set your physical space up. I like your modular approach. What does your competition space look like? How many stations? That sort of thing would be very interesting, I think, to our viewers too.
Yeah, for sure. I think we just did an actual event with we did an NBA 2K combine where we invited the top there last year. This in December of 2022, there was about 102,000 individuals that qualified for the NBA 2K League Season 6. And we chose the top 100 individuals to come out to our facility. And what we did is we actually allowed them to be able to compete inside of our facility. And we invited all the NBA 2K League coaches, the Mavericks, Pacers, Milwaukee Bucks, all of them to come to our facility to actually see these players compete before they get drafted into the actual NBA 2K League, which was that of January, I think, 26th. So just recently. And at this point, it was a great opportunity to be able to have about 6 gaming stations. So we had our stage, which was 5v5. We had 2 in the arena, which was about, it was 5v5 and another 5v5, 2 stations there. We had a station that was in our content room, and then we had a station that was in our competitive room, and then we had a station within our office. So we had a total of 6 stations, which is 60 PCs, and we allow gamers to be able to come in and showcase their skills in front of those coaches. So therefore they can actually be able to say, hey, this is who I am personally. Here's how I am able to compete in a live facility, and here's my stick skills that we call it. And so ultimately, from our perspective, we built an actual environment where we can have tournaments in that type of capacity, but at the same sense, we made it modular to when we are not having tournaments, we're having educational programming, as well as we're having our developers and our executives and our education team able to be inside of this facility. So when I think about building a facility, I think about it being very resourceful. Like, I'm not a multi-millionaire. I'm very resourceful with the funds that I have, and I have never raised any capital. So from my perspective, we're straight bootstrapped with the perspective of that's just how I grew up. I grew up with, you got to be cautious on who you take money from, right? So at this point, I always had that perspective of let me just make sure I show the value of my company. If I can go to an investor and then being able to say, here's our revenue, here's our profit, and I have more negotiation power at that point. And ultimately, when you have more negotiation power, you can be able to you can move the meeting how you would need to. So I'm looking at it from a perspective of saying, here's my actual company. I'm going to drive this valuation based off of this. And ultimately, when I talk to a student, I'm saying, you don't have to just take money right now. You can drive the valuation of your company by having a good product more than anything, a good product or a good service. And then at the end of the day, you want to be on the receiving end of those negotiations. You don't want to be in a room where they actually taking advantage of you, and then you're actually working for someone else versus you being able to work for your actual self. So ultimately, from that perspective, I look at being able to create an environment that's modular to the point to where I can do events, I can work on a team, I can build a product, and ultimately it keeps my overhead down when it comes down to it. So I look at, when you think about building a building, you think about how you can actually make it so modular to the point to where you can be able to have multiple things going on almost at once. And it actually allows you to drive in more revenue with also limiting to your expenses.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
So I love the all the words and the phrases and everything, because it shows that not only are you a scrappy dude and you clawed your way to the top of what you're doing in your industry, but you're speaking in the ways that you're teaching your people. And so I find it fascinating and refreshing because as a military dude, I don't really get to take part of the American dream. I have to protect it, and there's many rules against us, being employed. I can't be employed by any companies and anything like that. And so, when I see people going at it, the sacrifices, especially the last 20 years of my friends and myself, and just seeing you go after it. And, WarriorGMR is about veterans as well, right? We include that in what we do. And I know for a fact that a lot of vets get really wrapped around the axle when people are just inactive. And when they see entrepreneurs going at it and doing good things to build society. It's one thing to like be an entrepreneur to sell, candles, right? Which is great. But when you're building an industry from scratch and you're doing what no one else has done, I mean, it's so refreshing to see that. And I salute you. I think it's incredible. And just the way that you're talking about your business and how to run the business and build it and everything. I would send my kid to you because I know talent and I know competency pretty well. And I just think it's incredible what you're doing. Now, my next question.
It's not easy. It's definitely, it's not for the faint-hearted. And every day it is one of the hardest tasks that one can be able to take on. One of the hardest, fighting for your country is the top. Right. And so in this instance, I look at it as like I get inspiration from individuals who have put their actual, minds, bodies, souls on the line for that of the actual country, which is admirable. I was actually born on an actual military base. I was born on Fort Leonard Wood in Missouri at the actual for the Army. My father met on the Army base. My grandfather was also in the Army, I believe around about 23 years in the Army. So he's like, my family comes from and people will be like, Danny, why are you so disciplined? Even though I'm not, I am not the person that will go into the armed forces. I respect so much in regards to the actual sacrifices that my family has made to allow me to have the mindset to say, I have options. And that's ultimately, from our perspective, that we're trying to give to our community. We're just trying to give them more options. And at that point that they can say, hey, I want to be a rapper. I want to be a basketball player. Or I want to be an eSports pro, or I want to go to the Army. Our goal right now is being able to say, hey, there's options out there. Let us expose you to the options and how your skill sets can be applicable to all of the different options that are out there.
Yeah, cool. So as we wrap this up, I want to ask a couple of questions.
Yeah.
Mainly the first one is, we're just going to fast forward 5 years from now.
Okay.
And we're on this podcast again. We're episode 3014 instead of 10.
Got it.
And we're sponsored. So future sponsor, WarriorGMR Headquarters Podcast, brought to you by XYZ. Yeah. So tell us the state of the industry, and what you've built.
Yeah, man. Years. Yeah. This is gonna be intense. The esports industry right now is experiencing a reconstructive period in time, similar to that of the .com, where many investors invested and a lot of investors recognized that their actual value that they put in wasn't as valuable and they pulled out, and the companies that actually have really good products and services surfaced, right? And at that point, that's what we're seeing in the actual industry. If you had the connections at the time, you were able to drive in capital to be able to say, hey, I'm going to support this particular esports pro team. And that's not as happening so much as we're experiencing even coming up forward. And what we're expecting is another recession. And ultimately, what I think of from a state is this is the cool time, because the individuals, they always say like the firefighters are the ones that go into the fire while everybody is running out of it. And they are confident of going into the fire because they have the skill sets that are giving them confidence to go in the fire to actually protect or save individuals from the hardship that can come from being in that fire. And when we look at the actual esports industry right now, I look at it as there are going to be companies right now that's going to come into the industry with valuable skill sets that's going to add value to the actual industry. When it comes down to an investor saying, do I want to put my time and effort and energy into this as not only an investor, but as a company? If I'm Lenovo, or if I'm Dell, or if I'm HyperX, or if I'm ViewSonic, or if I'm these particular companies, do I want to put my effort and time inside of this? Is it a smoke and mirrors industry, or is it some companies out there that are actually providing true value for their actual individuals in their communities? And I think that's what's happening right now, where it's clearly known who's doing what and who is providing value and who's not providing value. And ultimately, it's just forced individuals to really look at the KPIs that they were presented with, but when they made their initial investments, and they're like, okay, this is not quite what I thought it was. So now I'm going to scale back. But while I'm scaling back, I'm going to look for more bang for my buck. So now they're going to find the actual companies that are providing value, which now those resources will have likely gone to someone or some entity that have never been in those rooms. It's because they're now searching for their actual value now. And now when that actual company or organization has a true product or service, now that company, it grows, and now it adds value to the actual industry from a perspective of saying, all right, this is not smoke and mirrors. These are really dope companies that are actually doing good work. And now from there, it gets more people coming in, because now if you're a partner or organization or investor, you're now talking to your friends and you're saying, you know what, I invested in this company, or I did a sponsorship for this company, or I provided resources to this company, and I've made an X return on top of that. Now that friend that they're talking about, or that next company they're talking about, saying, all right, cool, I feel confident, I'm going to come in there now. And at that point, now that grows the actual industry. From a state that I say right now, it's more so it's in a reconstructive phase. And now you're going to see the actual people who have really good products and services outside of just, hey, I'm getting sponsors or I'm getting this. Like at this point, you're going to find that you have to create a really good product or a service to be able to survive in this actual industry, because people are not stupid anymore.
Okay. And what did you build in this 5 years?
I feel as if like we built an actual service that ultimately, when I think about actual education, I think that educators want something more than just a technology platform or a curriculum or a PD session. They want a full gamut of things where they can be able to go and say, hey, I may not know this space, but I have somebody or some entity that I can come to that can help me go through the full pipeline of it. And that's where I'm going to pull my trust in. When you think about companies like Apple, people do not leave Apple because Apple builds everything inside of it, so you don't have to leave. You think about a company in the esports space, you have to build that same package for that of an educator, where they feel as if like, I'm good, I can go and knock on a door. And I think that's one of the things that we've had so much traction with in our geographic location, is the fact that we've been able to be a full suite of services. When an educator wants to be able to build a space, they can come see it. They know that we built a space before. If they want curriculum, they know that we've done this before. If they want PD sessions, they know they can come here. If they want an actual technology platform, they know so it's a full service of tools that they can come and rely on. And ultimately, when you think about the notion I said earlier, building a tech platform and just think they will come, that's not necessarily the instance. So for you as an organization, if you're out there in this actual podcast, think about being of so much value to an individual that they say, I don't want to leave. And then from that perspective, you think about Apples and you think about these companies that have just done an amazing job of being very sticky to their actual user base. And from that perspective, that's how we're looking at it. And that's what we've done. But on the flip side, we've not been able to scale as fast as we wanted to because we've been focused on quality. So a lot of, for us as an actual organization, we went to the moon. We were like, we're going to add value to everybody in the United States and global. We're going to be this global company, and we're going to do it in France, and we're going to do it in Australia. But then we recognize, like, dang, we can't even do it in our own home. You know, like what does it all matter? Like, let's start focusing on Texas. Let's make sure Texas is good. Make sure that there's quality there, and then expand when it's there. So I feel like a lot of companies try to go global because this industry is so in its infancy. So it's easy to go global because there's so many people that's wanting to know about this space. But at the end of the day, if you're not taking care of home, then what are you doing?
Yeah, it's great. All right. So last question is, when you're a driven dude, anyone, even if they're just listening to the audio, either on the subway or in their lift or whatever, they can tell that you got a lot of energy. And so,
yeah, after 5 hours of
yeah.
driving.
And folks, by the way, he just got out of a 5-hour drive, and I was calling him like, we're on the Zoom right now. Get over here. And he stumbles out of his car. There's food wrappers coming off, as he's getting out of the vehicle. There's a carton of donuts and the drink things. And so
I was stalling. I'm like, he'll be here, kid. Let me stall. He'll make it.
He's a machine. All right. So what I want to know is when doubt comes in your mind, right? And you're like, you know what, man, this is a lot of work. It's going slow. I could just play video games all day and be cool. Yeah. And you talk yourself out of it and you motivate yourself. What is your driving factor that you just will die before you let fail? That drives you, motivates you, energizes you, that you can share with us?
Yeah. That's so dope, my man. That's so dope. For me, I never was. Oh man, I can cry right now. That's so crazy right now. I never was the individual that had the opportunities to play the games because I was so in a position to where I had to make money. I had to survive. So instead, I said, I want to make capital, but I also want to be able to have other people to be able to have the opportunities to play games. So for me, I built my company around other individuals having the opportunity to do the things that they love because I wasn't provided the opportunity to do that because I was just grew up in, I won't say unfortunate element of just having to not have the resources available. So for me, anytime that someone says, thank you, you provided a platform for me, that's what keeps me going. That's what makes me wake up in the morning. Like, for an example, like, it's crazy, man. We've had over, like I stated, we've had a considerable amount of individuals go pro. And just last week, we had an individual who was coming to our facility, man. His name was DeJuan. He was coming to our facility so often playing games because he didn't have the internet and then he didn't have the infrastructure to actually be, to do good in the actual game. And the hard part about esports is it's what resources you have. That's the unfortunate part about, the esports industry is what computers you have, what frame rates, so he would come to our space with the perspective of like, I want to go pro because he didn't have the internet. He didn't have the infrastructure. And I seen him hurt when he didn't make the actual season 5 draft. Season 4. I seen him hurt when he didn't again make the draft for season 5. And then on season 6, he was one of the best draft picks for the NBA 2K League, and he actually got drafted last week. And when he got drafted, he called me immediately. And I was at a conference at FETC in New Orleans, and he called me and he was just like, Danny, crying, like balling. I'm balling because I'm like, he's like, thank you for giving me a platform to be able to get drafted. Now I have a guaranteed salary, and now I have the ability to go compete for $3.5 million. And now I get a chance to be able to take care of my family and my friends and inspire my community. And he said, we're doing it for Dallas. At that point, he said it for the city. So when he said, I'm doing it for Dallas, I said, man, I'm too. We all doing it for Dallas. And at that point, when you think about the impact that you have on someone, that's what makes me be like, I don't care if I'm having a bad day. I don't care if things are not going in the right. Like at the end of the day, when I can hear him say, thank you for providing the platform to change his life and his family's life, That's why I do esports. That I don't care what nobody says. I'm not worrying about what people say in the industry. I'm not worrying about like what he say, she say, what they do. I go every day hard because he just made my day, because I recognize that the time, the investment, the money, the experience, everything that I'm investing in this actual platform, he just let me know that it was worth it. And at that point now I have the energy to go and try to impact another person.
I think that's amazing. And I've been that kid. You've been that kid too.
Mm-hmm.
And thankfully there's guys like us and gals like us who providing those opportunities, and we just better society that way. And there's no other better motivator to get you out of bed, to get you motivated and energized in the service of others. And a bunch of our previous podcasts, we talked about, how to get out of a rut. And if you haven't found your niche in society where there is someone who is off worse than you, and there always is someone off worse than you, who's not relying on you to do something, then you need to find it, because it is an ultra motivator and it's good for your heart and soul anyway.
Very much
so. Danny, you're an amazing human doing amazing things in an incredible industry that's breaking ground. You will rise over the next 5 years of the reconstructive period. There will be no peers equal to you, and you'll set the standard, and it's in the template, and it's just super exciting to watch. And I honor you for being here, taking time out of your day, especially it's a very inopportune time and day for filming, folks, but he made it, and we're super happy. And
for sure.
April, I'll give you the last word.
Thank you. Just one. Thank you so much, Danny. This space is so new. People they think we're just playing as administrators. They think we go to work all day and play. When I say we're changing lives, we're giving people opportunities. This is an industry. It's not a game. It is a game, but it's not a game.
For sure. Definitely for sure.
Doing that work. And thank you so much for for towing the line, because it really is. Right now we're building the track as we're running down it. And it's a very interesting space with a lot of pitfalls. But my last question is, how can we help you? The kids got a fantastic audience. I expect this to go viral. What would you ask? How can we, not just us two, but the folks who will be watching this, what can we do? Because it takes a village. I know that it does. That's a cliche, but
it does. And if I had to be just direct, you guys are doing it, just being able to spend the time. Y'all were patient with me. You could be really mad at me right now. You could be like, this guy, he's late. You could be really mad at me right now. But it shows your patience. And I've over these last months, I've been around a lot of individuals who've been very patient with me, but they know I'm trying my best. They know this guy is up all night, he's early in the morning, he's moving, and I just ask for grace for people. Just give me grace. I'm trying, but it's getting more and more intense as the day. So I think what you guys are providing right now is that's everything. You give a chance to you give an opportunity for someone to share their insight that it ultimately can impact somebody else. And your audience you've just empowered your audience with, at the end of the day, I feel like that's how you can help. The other thing is that, you spoke to me in regards to the new integrations that you're having at Chicago. At the end of the day, I feel as if there can be an element where I can just add insight, to it from the perspective of just saying, here's some of the stuff that I've experienced here. This is this is how you have to deal. I remember I built this space in 193 days. And I literally had about $750,000. And I said, I'm going to build a $3 million facility for $750,000. Wow. So what I had to do was I had to literally almost not sleep here in totality, but I had to be here. I had to interact with the GC, the general contract. I had to map out the floor plan. I had to work with him in regards to HVAC, to the lighting, to every doors, to every window, to every console, the stations. I had to map out every single square footage inside of this actual space with the perspective of saving time, because the more time it takes, the more money it takes. So for me, I was like, I only got this amount of money. And so I know that I want to build something dope, but I don't have the money to build like, you know, the dope things, but I know that I have to be very resourceful with what I had. And we were able to accomplish it. I told my team, I was like, I out of craziness, I told our team, we're going to build this facility. What I said, we're going to build this facility in 90 days. I told them that we're going to build this facility in 3 months. And the GCs basically looked at me like I was crazy. And I was just like, no, like, we're going to do this. And I'm going to be here right next to you as we actually build this out. And it became reality that it was going to take more than 90 days, but I was still on it. I tell you, it's like, you're going to have to be on it. Your expectations may not be, you know, what happens, but at the same sense, you do not you don't let off the actual pedal with your expectations, you know, because, you know, you may only have a certain amount to work with, and that's just nothing you can control. You know, some individuals have a lot to work with. Some people don't have that much to work with. Work with what you have and make the most out of it.
Thank you so much, Danny. Thank you. You might find me on your doorstep one day.
Yeah. It's crazy, man. It's an intense process. You got to be super dedicated.
Yeah. I can see those gaming skills came into play too.
Yeah.
Your world building, built your own world. So good for you, brother. All right, man. Well, I appreciate it so much.
For sure.
This is WarriorGMR Headquarters podcast out.
Out.
Out.